Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing. Hi guys, welcome to the 25th episode of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. I hope that you're all doing well and feeling really good today. It's another lovely day in Tennessee. I've been doing a lot of running since the quarantine, and this week I was listening to music. Sometimes I listen to podcasts and sometimes I listen to music. It just really depends on my mood. But the other day I was listening to a song by Meghan Trainor. I love her because the cadence of her music is really good to run to, and she's also kind of sassy, which I love. Anyway, the song that she was singing about was her evil twin and how we all have one. You know, the one that does all the bad stuff that we don't want to be responsible for? Well, it made me think a little deeper into that thought. Go figure, right? A really cool lady once told me that each of us have to figure out who we are to our core. Really know who we are to our core, because we're going to have thoughts, fantasies, cravings that are normal but aren't going to serve us. This is why really knowing who you want to be is so important, so that you can compartmentalize those thoughts and say, okay, that's just a thought, but doing that would not align with who I am at my core, so I'll leave it right where it is. I love this because sometimes well-meaning people, your teachers, religious leaders, parents even, will tell you that just having a thought makes you a bad person. I was raised in a pretty strict religion where even thinking about a thought was considered a sin. And I know that my religion isn't the only one that thinks that way. There were entire domains of things I wasn't supposed to think about. Why then, when I would try so hard, did I still think about them? Truth be told, every single person in every single religion all over the world has had some sort of forbidden thought of some sort. So it doesn't make you a bad person, it makes you normal. Now, acting on the thought can have detrimental consequences depending on what it is. Sometimes we feel so bad about these thoughts that we try to use super force to not have them ever. How's that working out? Well, trying to force yourself to not think a thought doesn't work. Harvard University did a study on the topic, and they asked people in the study to not think about something, and they just couldn't do it. For example, right now, I want you to think about anything in the world but a white bear. Don't you think about that white bear? Well, more than likely, right now, you're thinking about a white bear. Trying to not think about it actually makes you think about it more. So to give you a few examples of some of these thoughts that could pop up that can be a little bit worrisome. So have you ever thought about just you're in a store somewhere and you think about grabbing all the cash from the register and running? Or how about dropping your kids off at a friend's house and just never picking them up? I'm not a parent, but I have had moms that are like, oh my gosh, some of the things I think about, Maybe you have fantasies about someone other than your own partner. Well, maybe you think about eating 5 cupcakes in a row when you're on a diet. These are some of the common thoughts that people have. Now, there are a lot more examples than that I could come up with, but it's truly never ending. But what I want to say to you is, according to research and psychologists, this is normal and something that most of us experience to one degree or another. Now, I'm not a doctor, and if you have recurring thoughts that don't serve you, then obviously you should go get help, right? But for most of us, that's just not the case. The important thing is to recognize them as just thoughts. Remember, in my podcast on Wednesday, I said that we have between 12 and 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% of which are negative. So, of course, we're going to have some thoughts that don't serve us. Now, really deciding who you are at your core is super important, so that you can look at the thought and recognize consciously that, well, that thought doesn't align with who you are, and therefore you can just dismiss it as maybe a silly fantasy or just what it is, a fleeting thought. Goes in one ear, out the other. And that is normal. So can you see how really knowing who you are at your core can help you long term to decide which thoughts align with who you are at your core and which don't? Think about if your core emotion word is integrity. Well, then grabbing the cash and running doesn't really align with that, right? You would never do that. It might come into your brain and you might wonder, like, oh my gosh, why did I just think that? Well, it's normal. It's just a fleeting thought. What if your word or your thought for your body is fit? Well, eating the 5 cupcakes, that doesn't line up with that, does it? Look, it isn't always going to be perfect. We're human and we're imperfect. But working towards being aware and conscious about our thoughts and how they align with who we are to the core can play such a big role in our wildly successful lifestyle. We all have our own version, but one ingredient we should all have in common to work towards is happiness. And being happy is easier when our actions align with who we know we really are. And look, this does not mean you have to have this deep, thoughtful conversation with yourself daily. It could simply mean you have one word you use to describe yourself and judge everything you do from that word. Something to remind you to say, that was an interesting thought, not sure why I had it, but it's not who I am, so no thanks. All right, guys, head over to my website, HeidiDawson.com, if you'd like to download the tool that I created free for you to choose your 3 words that you can use to define yourself and remind yourself daily who you are at your core. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.